It's finally the film Critici-simian Avatarcalypse, The Way of Water, and I've got to dive right in. If you're one of the 15 Earth people who didn't pay the Cameron tax first time around, you're gonna have to finally see Avatar 1 before you sit the sequel. It's rare that a franchise doesn't hold your hand, lead you by the hairy tentacle, and spoon-feed you its pre-existing relationships, especially after so long. In fact, 13 years later, it's not just the pre-existing relationships ready to leave you beached, but The Way of Water unceremoniously injects whole new, full-grown characters into Pandora. Jake and Neytiri did the ponytail rodeo enough to add up to a family of 3, plus a mystery adoptee after losses in the first movie. Another kid in the mix is a human orphan of those who stayed behind after the RDA Corporation was forced off their unobtainium Dollar Eden. Dad is quite regimented, with them all fearing any more losses after his prequel betrayals and failures. And now would be the time to worry, because inevitably the Sky People, aka us, have returned, itching for an ethnic cleansing, and this time the entirety of Pandora. Sully and the gang regroup away from a newly carved out RDA beachhead, preparing to widen invasion. The spear tip of the corporate colonization is an elite force of avatars infused with the DNA and memories of some baddies who didn't make it out of Avatar 1. Which begs the question, are the ones who caught the Blue Death before really the best for the job? Anyway, they're led by an avatar juiced up on Colonel Quaritch's memories and all that stuff, tasking them with the hunting down of Sully and his guerrillas for sabotaging the RDA re-invasion. With the target on their back, the Sully family sadly split off from the tribe to save the tribe. Another logical head-scratcher, but we push on. They flee the forest and claim refugee status far, far away with a tribe of seafaring Na'vi. Then, I do my Critici-simian thing. I want to clarify that on a franchise more or less stranding you upon reinsertion, unceremoniously foisting a new Blue Man group on you, I claim this in praise of The Way of Water. Generally, bless movies going like, you didn't do the readings? We can't halt the semester for you. Get on the bus. It's a bare minimum of respect for the basic intelligence of moviegoers. Trust us to tie the loose ends alone. Some might go over our heads, and that's probably okay. Entrust yourself to the world's currents. Go with the flow. The other person this ethos rightly respects is James Cameron. For better or worse, he bears the creative risk for picking up from and adding to where and what he wants. Reminds me of that absolute churd admission from Villeneuve on Dune, saying, I think I did this movie for a single audience member, which is me. Simple as. No focus groups, no test audiences, no actuarially tuned algorithmic creativity. If anything works out great or generic, praise and blame are singularly on the flesh and blood person who gave a damn about his navy blue babies. Like it or lump it. It's really that I just appreciate seeing belief over calculus in creators. Okay, so Halle sanctimonious for a movie that's not that complex, and thankfully won't leave you beached, stranded, or whatever nautical metaphors you have for too long. So while it's nice going deep end on new friends, The Way of Water can also be painfully expository. For example, a character remarking how it sucks he can only breathe Pandoran air for like 10 seconds, but Na'vi tolerate oxygen more easily. Like, if you need us to stash that obvious fact for later, rather demonstrate the problem instead of telegraphing the possibility breathable atmosphere will be a make or break issue later. Taking us out of a groove with the flow of things. Don't just state it. Like in another scene, a series of events might break your heart if a character, technically sympathizing with you, wasn't constantly cutting in to caption each stage of an attack by coldly reciting the next and the next weapon's stats and purpose to an uninitiated character. Like, thanks and cool mate, but can I just have an uninterrupted cry without the commentary please? Then again, maybe like Stations of the Cross, it might hammer home the inhumanity of the scene for some. But for me, I need this passage better written and acted to pass. The exposition's also a pain in broader strokes, like laboring a training montage type sequence. So not exposition by heavy-handedly spelling out visual storytelling, but in the needless, tedious 10 minutes given to just a guy learning how to ride a fish. And after a few more scenes, 5 more minutes of The Fish and the Furious. Time spent repeating a thing is only part of the puzzle to immersing an audience, or at least me. More minor immersion snag, background Na'vi randos are almost hilariously busy at all times, every extra milling about with purpose like Cameron just stepped into the office. 1,000 NPCs out the same spawn point, trying to play it cool. A lot of how places feel alive in real life is also in the locals doing nothing. Someone in the Amazon staring off into the trees and then carrying on whittling more arrows. A guy in a bistro watching pigeons pinching an espresso. Nothing. But a very minor point, more aggravating in terms of technical emotion, at least for me, are constant snap zooms, that cell phone shooting effect, like trying to find and frame a fast-moving object. To be fair, a lot of these things are matters of personal taste, and for me, this technique is used up as far back as Cloverfield. I'd have preferred if they learned from the tactile handheld style of something like Children of Men's terrifying street battle. Another movie I keep returning to because I wish I had a present-day reason for us to be talking about it. Sigh. In its wider scenery though, of course, once again, Avatar's jaw-droppingly beautiful. And testament to this flawlessness of the landscape is how much that aspect of visual effects just recedes into the background of all other concerns. This ability to make you even forget about critiquing something on its VFX front is a dead giveaway of quality unmatched. It's just so natural. Neither Marvel nor DC meet this realism. The wildlife are also wonderfully thought through and look believable and right at home where they are. Sadly, a lot of that home is the pretty restrictive surf of the seaside village. The Sullys cross oceans, and the rest plays out in indistinct reefs and hammock heaven. In real life, we're learning about how whales have regular hangouts and highways. The water scenes could have been filmed with a sense of natural, logical architecture in mind, or have village infrastructure and social and economic activity harmoniously all the way into the deep. Back to VFX quick. So the grand scale stuff, on point, incredible. But the emotional minutiae, eesh. At first, I was bleak it never let the Na'vi just stew in their fields. Every expression happens in flickers. Compare the Apes franchise, bravely placing a pissed chimp front and center, seething, symmetrical, carrying ape pathos against every cultural tradition, telling us the premise is preposterous and talking apes are exclusively hilarious. Waiter's emotive capture work on Caesar with Andy Serkis is a bar their work on the Na'vi cannot touch. They've Botoxed their brows to the mobility of marble, or their dreadlocks just weigh a ton and pull their faces too tight for subtlety. At one point, someone watches a loved one die with the dopey glaze of an exhausted person scanning a mediocre fast food menu they've eaten through thrice. The narrative beats are blocky, like every scene was thrown into a hat and drawn out at random. It will show a guy hanging out with a whale with all the purpose and urgency of a Moby music video, which is sweet, but breaches a limit eventually, and past it, it will whiplash to the hit squad hunting them down with uber violence, achieving nothing significant in their scene. Then it might jump back to Fishboy for a handful of seconds, then it's off to another unrelated interaction, but breakneck beat changes, not as coherent stylistic choices. Like Cameron randomly burst into the writer's room, and before anyone can even say hi, he proclaims, "I want to see a big snake shark attack," which is pretty cool. Then 180s and evaporates. It's not 3 hours out of any necessity. There's so much filler, like when you struggle to fulfill a word count with waffle and circular talk. My word count demands I continue this maybe more in depth over on YouTube. And I want to because it's got interesting political dimensions, like a worthy reference to the barbaric Phoenix program of the US in Vietnam, but there's plenty clumsy stuff too. I also don't get too hung up on logical issues, but it gets aggravating if they stack up too much. Like inconsistent things, the fact that the RDA elite squad are disguised as Na'vi amounts to nothing. It serves zero purpose in the end. For cinema spectacle, it's not a total waste of time. But if I can hike a visually jaw-dropping mountain for 3 hours as decontextualized and discontiguous at a tenth of the cost, this filler episode's only good enough for a 5 out of 10 from me. I guarantee, however, that like 90% of critics and 98% of civvies, you'll probably be able to add 2 more stars onto my wine, so give this one a shot. The Way of Water. Sink yourself in.
I went to the studio and I said, let's not just do another movie, let's swing for the fences.
I think what people are in store for is Avatar but times 100. It takes it to a whole other place.
I've never seen anything like this in a movie. It picks up where it left off, and he just...
He was was wild. My eyes were glued to the screen, and I can't wait for people to see it.
The world is bigger. The stakes are higher.
This is our home!
I was always looking at everything in wonder.
What Jim is trying to create is very truthful, very emotional and grounded tales.
I need you to be strong.
A family trying to survive.
Strong-hearted.
It's really got this level of magic and crazy.
Go, 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 go!
It takes years to make these movies. Like, there's nothing like this.
It was the experience of the first movie, but on steroids.
In conclusion, I'm concerned for the sexual health of the internet this week. A good crop of peeps ready to beat themselves blue to sexy Navi. You guys have a blast on the way of water. Figuratively. I'll be prepping some kind of 2022 rap for next week's episode of See No Evil. I see you. Is that the greeting? I'm Navi now.